I call myself, technologically impaired after the Weird Al song, Amish Paradise, just because, yeah. And that's funny because I've been using computers and stuff since they were new in the 80s, and still I'm learning new stuff every day, becoming my own audio engineer. I don't understand why people get paid a lot of money to do this kind of stuff and be
Oh,
producers.
I will know our ministry has finally made it when I have my own audio video person.
There you go.
When that happens and I don't have to deal with this stuff anymore, I'd be like, that would be a blessing.
Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today, our guest dreamer is John J.R. Rennie out of Northern Idaho. He is the founder of the Brush Fires Ministry. You can find him at brushfires-digital.com. That link will be in the description below. For my part, would you kindly like, share, and subscribe? Tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. I do video game streams Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific, most nights of the week. I've got my alarms going off. That's good times. We're doing it live. This episode brought to you in part by ABC Book 18. Yes, I now have 18 works of historical dream literature. The most recent is another anthology. It is Oniro Chronologia, Volume 4, Prima Reliquorum, the first of what remains, because there will be a second and a third. More books coming. You can find all this and more at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com, including downloadable or live streamable MP3s of this audio-only MP3s of this very podcast. And if you'd head on over to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, building a community there, free to join, attached to my Rumble account. And that is enough out of me. JR, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Benjamin, this is going to be fun. This is certainly different than all the other podcasts that I attend, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Meanwhile, playing fetch with cats, of course. Yeah, great to have you here too. And I always love talking to folks that have their own unique perspective. I'll speak to a lot of people who have kind of a spooky woo, astrology side of interpretation of dreams type of thing, or they believe, communications from spirits and whatnot. And that's the thing. And then there's more religious interpretations, which there's a long biblical history. I aspire someday to the levels of wizardry of, Joseph and other biblical interpreters. But speaking of which, I mean, maybe it's a great place to start, but we'll talk about you and your work and whatnot. But a lot of the books I've repackaged and republished. That's what I do with the historical dream literature. I take books from 2,000 years ago to all the way up to the 1920s when copyright kicks in. And I put out a modern version of it with additional footnotes and whatnot. And a lot of them reference not just Joseph and who was the other guy?
Daniel,
yes. Daughter. You okay? Oh, she's probably going to puke or something. That's okay. She'll be all right. Oh, she's loud. But there was another one. It was the Jacob's Ladder. That was another. Oh, yeah. So you had mentioned that the dreams we're going to talk about for you came with their own understanding. And I think that was the case with Jacob as well. It's he woke up from that dream of the angels ascending and descending the ladder, and it came with its own understanding. Am I getting that right, or was that not the case with him?
No, I do believe. I mean, I think the more famous interpreters are Daniel and Joseph, because they were immediate for the most part. I think Daniel was like overnight when he was talking with Nebuchadnezzar. And I think with Jacob, it was more about his heritage, about what was going to be coming through his line, that people were going to be able to, through time and through his lineage, be able to ascend to God. I mean, to be able to be restored with God, if you will.
I think it also, I don't know if this is my own understanding or if I got it from the book. I can never remember sometimes. And if it's true, I guess it doesn't matter. Truth is, it is what it is. But part of the understanding, and not to say you're wrong or contradict that at all, but was also the idea of a two-way communication with God. These angels ascending and descending. It's not going one way or the other. It's not just top down. It's also bottom up in terms of this works into. I plan to write a whole nother book series someday called A Wizard's Guide to X, Y, and Z. And one of them is going to be a guide to angels and demons, and the idea that these, as it says, we do not struggle against, the
Flesh and
physical
blood,
world.
but against principles and principalities
Yeah.
here on earth, right?
Exactly. And that as we were talking earlier, what I do, this for the folks out there in the audience, we always talk a little beforehand and we miss so much great stuff. I should just throw on a recording from the moment I should announce to people and then start explaining things and capture all of it if I can. But what I do is I, I would like to, with it sounds grandiose and maybe it is, but I would like to think what I'm trying to do is open myself up to communication from God in that sense. I'm trying to invite in angels versus demons. And that would be the purpose of writing a book like that, is to delineate, okay, so for each of the holy, each of the seven deadly sins, there are seven holy virtues that match with them: pride, humility, that kind of thing. And
Hmm.
that is the nature, that's the principalities, those are the powers we're dealing with in the world, what we invite into ourselves. We invite in pride, it's going to come, and it's going to come with a lot of consequences. We invite in humility, we're going to communicate through that spirit, or deliver that to other people, and act it out in our lives. So I think that was also a powerful connection that I'm going to try and get into the book, is that idea of that scene in the Bible saying, you can, if you are open to it, there is the possibility of these communications, and you're not going to hear voices. Probably some people have, lots of people have, but you're going to get ideas. And I think ideas are angels, are good ideas and bad ideas. And you can see their effects in the world and how they impact other people. I'm going to stop there. I had a whole point, but I think I lost it trying to find the
No, no,
references.
actually, this I think you're going down a really good line because we actually teach this in our ministry. So, all humans are born of a triune nature. Okay, there's three aspects of us. There's a body, a soul, and a spirit. The body also is triune in that it has a skeletal muscular system, it has a circulatory system, and it has a nervous system. Your soul is also triune in that it has your intellect, your mind, if you will, as far as the intelligence portion of it, your feelings, and your free will. And then the spirit is also triune in that it contains your conscience, your ability to be able to receive inspiration or intuition, and then the open line of communication to the spirit world. That is how God can talk to you. If you're a non-believer, that's how the enemy talks to you. We describe those communications through that back channel of the human psyche, as either intrusive thoughts when they're coming from the enemy,
Mhm.
or they are inspirational, intuitive thoughts when they're coming from God. And the thing is that most people don't realize they have that back channel open to them. And so they get a thought and they think it's from them and they judge it accordingly and then either act on it or don't. And according to who is talking to them. So not every thought that goes through your head is from you or for you.
Mhm.
And the ability to be able to interpret who's talking to you from the outside, these external voices, if you're a non-believer, then these are things that are going to impact your ability to be able to think, your intellect and your emotions, ultimately trying to get control of your free will for you to do things that are either bad, evil, or good, positive. And so those are and we were all wired. One of the fallacies is that people think that this body that we have is all there is.
Mhm.
And that's not the case. We're actually spirit creatures trapped in a human body. I turned 66. I can't do what I used to be able to do at 25. I
Mhm.
can't eat like I used to eat when I was 25 and things of that nature. So these are aspects that the human part of us, the physical part of us, is going to go away. And after that, all that's left is the soul and spirit.
Yeah, I've had that impression for a long time. Before I got too deep into yeah, just cats. Come on, stop. We have a young male cat who's in his juvenile phase now and whatnot, and or I guess he's fully adult, and he wants to play with our elderly female cat, and she's not having it. She's like, just leave me alone. No, I was gonna say, I hate it when they interrupt me like that. Um, I've long had the feeling that, and I think it's true, that we were around before we became material or inhabited a material existence, and that we will continue afterwards. That it's, it's going purely on like not just like raw logical statistical probability, but in a sense, yes, it seems almost impossible that we wouldn't be. If you're just going to go by the what is it, second law of thermodynamics, that energy can neither be created
Right.
nor destroyed, and that's it. What we've got with our, and a lot of psychology and dream interpretation specifically focuses on that idea of what is consciousness and what does it mean to be conscious versus unconscious, or what is the subconscious? How do we describe this phenomenon that we're experiencing? And what makes the most sense to me is that what we experience as consciousness is this point of intersection where two lines or two lines crisscross. At that dot, that's consciousness, where it's the material world, the physical form, and our soul, for lack of a better word. And a lot of people poo-poo these terms because they're like, "Oh, that's religion. Religion's silly. I don't need a sky daddy." And it's like, it's not like that. I think of these things as Jung did. Now, Jung was much more spiritual than Freud. Freud was very materialistic, and Jung was a little more. There's other things we can't explain out here, and but not only that, it's a lot of these mystical or spiritual interpretations or understandings of things, descriptions, storytelling helps us to understand what it is we're looking at a lot better than in ways that the materialist side can't explain. It
Yeah.
just goes, well, we don't know what that is, so it's probably imaginary. That
Yeah.
doesn't tell me anything.
So from a Christian perspective, if you want to look up what I just laid out for you about the soul and the spirit, by the way, when the Bible talks about the heart, it's talking about the combined soul and spirit.
Yeah.
In fact, in the book of Hebrews, it says that the word of God is so piercing that it separates bone from marrow and soul from spirit. That's how tightly those things are connected. But there is a theologian named Watchman Nee. He's Chinese, I believe, and wrote about the soul and spirit many years ago. And you can just still find his work by doing a simple Google search. But I would recommend, if you want to have a Christian perspective on the structure of man, his is really insightful, if you will, and it will make sense.
Exactly. And part of the reason I have planned this, say, book series about angels and demons and trying to explain them is I'm also thinking through these problems. And it's like, once I've found a way to describe it to myself, then I'm ready to try and describe it to other people. And actually forcing yourself to put it into words as a description to someone else is a very useful tool to understand it, which is one of the reasons it's very beneficial to seek out a dream interpreter in a way, even if it's just speaking with your spouse in the morning saying, "Hey, I had this dream and it stuck with me all the way through breakfast. I can see it. I can feel it. Let's talk about it. There's something in there that at least I feel like I need to understand, or that's got we think of it as a message for me, as if dreams, the way the ancient Greeks conceived them, dream was a god of itself, and it was sent by other gods to carry a message on purpose. But I think a good example that I've used in the past too, and I wanted to pick your brain on this too, because a lot of the people I tell this to, it's not their specialty or they're not a Christian explicitly, but one of the pairings I'm going to discuss is, okay, we're going to get to that, but I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory on it. The idea that dreams carry messages, and sometimes the message isn't for you. That happened recently where I've been doing an AI music project where I take all the world's greatest and most epic, most famous, best poetry, and I'm trying to turn it into AI music to expose more people to it. Like, you just read a poem on paper, maybe you get it, maybe you don't, maybe, but music, you really feel it, the lyrics. If you turn it into lyrics and it's sung, you go, "Oh, I get it." Okay, so I got a message for another content creator. His name is Styx, and it'll be released by now, so I can talk about it. I keep these things secret. You never know what the next one's going to be. It is a poem. I want to say by William Blake, but it might be. I might have that wrong. The poem's title is Uriel, and it's about the angel Uriel. And now a lot of these they're apocryphal in a way. They're not in the Bible. A lot of the names of specific demons and angels. I mean, we got Michael and a few others, but this poem is about the nature of Uriel, what his power or principality is, and he has a counterpart by the name of Stolas. And the way I conceive it is, Uriel is the angel of wisdom and intellect in a way, learning, the capacity to take in new information, synthesize it, create understanding out of it, that kind of thing. And Stolas is his counterpart, where you can appeal to Stolas as well for wisdom of a kind, information of a kind. And the way I conceive it is broad strokes. And then I swear I'm going to turn it back to you. I talk too much. Uriel is like received wisdom from a trusted elder in a way. Like, it's true. You don't have to get it, but if you follow it and contemplate it, you'll understand it. It's training at a technical school to show you how to do a proper weld in a way. Like, that's the spirit of Uriel. True information communicated accurately, etc. Stolas is a little more school of hard knocks. He's like, oh, you're going to learn, but you're not going to like it. And you will get wisdom from that experience. You will go, wow. And then hopefully you become, you turn away from Stolas and towards Uriel and say, okay, let me tell you what the mistakes I made and how to avoid that, so that you don't have to meet Stolas, because he's not a nice guy. You're gonna learn the hard way. I wanted to stop there and just throw that out to you as a possible understanding, if you have critique of it or if it sounds reasonable.
Well, let me just start with the word angel itself.
Sure.
You may or may not know this, but the word angel actually interprets as messenger. That is what the word angel means. So it does mean messenger. And so this is information. There's a famous section in the book of Daniel where Daniel's praying for something. I forget specifically what he was praying for. And God delays the answer. He doesn't get his answer, and Daniel's a famous interpreter of dreams. And Daniel was just wondering, what had gone on. I think it went on for, a week or two, maybe 20 days. And finally, the angel came, and I'm going to butcher this. I don't know which angel, but the angel did show up and gave him the interpretation. And his response to Daniel was, God answered your prayer the moment that you prayed it, but I was sent to deliver that message to you, and the principality of this region stopped me. It literally prevented the angel from getting to Daniel. It wasn't until Michael, the archangel, the big one, the superpowered angels, came and fought that demon. And by the way, demons are fallen angels. That's a third of the angels fell from heaven. You can also find that in the Bible, and they became demons. And so the principality of that region, which would have been probably another archdemon, if you will, was preventing this lesser angel from getting to Daniel with the message until Michael, his counterpart on the demonic side, was able to go no and just sort of kick his butt and get and allow the message to get through it. So these things are that way, and they do get delayed. Now, it's not as if we're looking at yin and yang here, from a Christian perspective. Evil is not equivalent to good, but evil does have its impact. It does have its resources and its ability, and a lot of evil is done by people that are inspired to do evil things. It's not that, that they're equal to God in any sense. And so that delay of that message was not something that took God by surprise, because he knew it was going to happen. He used that delay for his purposes. And so these things, they get a little bit weird. They get weird for people that are believers, and they get weird for people that are non-believers. Most Christians, I don't really think, spend a lot of time thinking about angels and demons, and they might be better off if they did.
I think so too, which is part of what I'm trying to do. Like the first book in that series, A Wizard's Guide to XYZ, that I want to do is A Wizard's Guide to Aesop's Fables. Let's start with something simple, something we've heard of. I grew up on those books, and I think a lot of kids today did not. They've never heard of it. They might know Slow and Steady Wins the Race because someone said it once, but they don't know The Tortoise and the Hare. They don't really get it. Or the idea of, why do we say, oh, that's just sour grapes? Well, that comes from the fox and the sour grapes, with these understandings of explanations of human behaviors and tendencies. It was early psychology, basically, way back, before, zero AD. But come on, girl. Hey, all right, they're growling at each other again. So that's what I want to do with a lot of different topics, and specifically with the angels and demons type of thing. And there's, in a way, it's to reframe and conceptualize these things, because a lot of people who poo-poo or denigrate or dismiss religion out of hand are like, again, I got that. Well, I don't need no magic sky daddy. I'm like, you probably want a lot of people to believe in magic sky daddy because that's the only thing that keeps them from giving in to bad ideas. But also if they had a better understanding of what it really means, that, this, you can say the words, we struggle against powers and principalities, but what does that really mean? And they think of supernatural phenomenon, and they are in their own way, but they act in the physical world. There's a process and a demonstration or a physical process that goes along with these things, even though, and again, this was early psychology. That's, even though I am in the agnostic non-theist, this is how I conceive of atheist, non-theist side of things, I see books like the Bible, and specifically the Bible, for a lot of reasons, as collected volumes of human wisdom gathered over thousands of years of our history. And it just kind of brings it together in these stories that make sense. And the better you can explain them. I don't know if you're a fan or if you've at least heard of him, but Jordan Peterson. And he talks about explaining a lot of these stories. And I listened to his entire biblical lecture series probably twice over, just because I'm like, okay, explain the stories, because he can tell what is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs really about? What is Pinocchio really about? Those are some of our great Western, stories. And the Bible's the same way. These are, in my estimation, they're not meant or to be taken literally like this, but that's, if I thought they were, then I would be a Christian, of course. So, your mileage may vary, but the idea that you're meant to, whether or not it ever happened, it remains true. So there's a difference between something being real and something being true. Something can be true that never happened, and something can be false that did happen in a way, so. And then to be a Christian, you say, well, it is both true and real. But I at least appreciate, and I would encourage most people to, for the idea of grasping the purpose of the stories. Understand what they really mean. You're going to get something from it, whether you believe they ever happened or not. Don't worry leave that part way off to the side. You can just do the evolutionary psychology understanding, and that is sufficient to get the ball rolling in terms of get the message. So that's my perspective. You'd probably say, well, the faith is important too. So I'll throw it back to you in terms of learning and understanding, getting these messages.
Just so people understand, I'm not a theologian. I'm not a pastor. Okay. I am the founder of the Brushfires Ministry, but I actually come from a very disciplined, reasoned background. I started a software company back in the late 80s that developed business, manufacturing, accounting software. And so the way I look at my faith is I did not have to leave my intelligence at the door. Some of the most intelligent, well-read, highly intelligent people I know are believers. And Jordan Peterson would be a perfect example of that. His daughter was just giving a health update because he's going through a really terrible recovery right now. Jordan is a believer. And so you're looking at one of the most Christian, or one of the most intelligent people that individuals are listening to. And his daughter, you listen to his daughter, she's looking at what's happening to him as a spiritual attack. Those were her words, not mine. So you don't have to leave your intelligence at the door. Here's the point, the bigger point. Every human being was created for a purpose, for God's purpose. He says, I've created you with this personality, with these interests, abilities, and values to do good, and not to do good for yourself necessarily, but to do good for others. So we're all sent here with a purpose, just like Christ was sent here for a purpose. And our individual purpose, when we align ourselves with that, and as a believer, we are then empowered by God, we can make a positive difference in this world. So these are things that you find fulfillment and joy and love and peace when you're doing what it is that God's created you to do. It's not this formulaic, dogmatic, legalistic, religion. I despise the word religion. I use the word relationship because for me, that's how I look at this. And so when the dreams that we're going to talk about from my experience, which is not normal, many people that I share these dreams with, and most of them have never been shared publicly until this recent book, sparks turn into brush fires, until they actually have experienced themselves. They're suspect about these dreams and so forth. So God doesn't talk to every one of his kids through dreams, but he does talk to us in different ways. And he wants us to do the good that we were created to do, whatever that looks like. And if I'm to do something that is has a positive impact in the world, the other individuals that are designed differently shouldn't look at what I'm doing to create good in this world and be jealous of it or envious of it or whatever. They should simply be busy doing what it is that they were created to do, and let God work out the details as to how he has that impact through our obedience, as opposed to all the other motivations that we can bring into our faith.
I'm going to move this keyboard out of the way. Here she comes. I wanted to make sure to ask you before, because we should probably move on to the dream thing very, very quickly here to make the most of our time.
Well, that is why your listeners are listening. So
it's true. Well, I always like to do a little, promote the guests and talk to the guests first, and then get into that. But I didn't know if you wanted to say any, not final words, but give you a description, like what is Brushfires Ministries? Well, what's the inspiration behind it? What's it intended to accomplish? It probably everything you've already been talking about, but you might have a more succinct way of phrasing it.
So Brushfires Ministry is a ministry to help believers understand their God-given calling, and we disciple them through that process so that we let them know what they're. We all understand the concept of the DNA of the body. It determines your gender, your height, and your eye color, and things like that. Well, there is a DNA of your soul. This is what God's placed in you. Things that you're interested in, your abilities, your values, those are not by accident. They were intentional. And they're intentional to be able to accomplish the sort of work that God's created you to do. So we use psychometric assessments in addition to spiritual gift assessments, along with our 8-session course, to train Christians how to be able to discover it and then walk it out. We then coach them and disciple them on how to walk it out. That's what the ministry is. It was formed at the end of 2015. My software company experienced its first and only significant loss. And it was substantial. And going into January 2016, I recognized that I could no longer sustain the company in that way. And so I cut all expenses. That wasn't going to be enough. And it was like, all right, well, you're going to have to cut your salary. If I didn't do that, my employees would be left without a job, and my clients throughout North America would not have any support. So going into 2016, I had this, all right, I'm going to cut all expenses, including my salary. And so I started going out there looking for other ways of, providing for my family. Mm-hmm. And every door was getting slammed in my face. It was like, and this is not the way God's always provided for us in very generous ways. And in May of 2016, I was frustrated. And I said out loud, God, I know you're behind this. What do you want? Mm-hmm. Because I was really happy with my software company. I was making a 6-figure income, and living accordingly, and all that to get cut in one day was a lot. And so I then spent most of 2016 just searching for God, talking to him, reading devotions, reading my scripture. I did a tremendous amount of writing. Short stories, articles, plays, poetry. And at the end of that year, an acquaintance came up to me and says, hey, I teach this psychometric assessment training program, and I think you'd be really good at it. Now, he had no altruistic intention. Okay, he charged a lot of money for this. Mm-hmm. And here's a guy who just went 9 to 10 months without a paycheck. And he's wanting to teach me about, neuroscience type of psychometric assessments. I'm like, yeah, not interested. Yeah. A, too much money, and B, it's not going to pay my bills. And so I left that meeting, and when I got back home, I felt this prompting from the Holy Spirit, do it. And at this point, I've been kind of beaten down for about 9 to 10 months. And I'm like, all right, God, fine, I'll do it. So I called the guy back, renegotiated a price for my wife and I to do it, took the assessments, and all of a sudden I'm beginning to understand it like a programming language. So I would get these assessment results. I could see it how it applied to me. My wife would take the same assessment, and I see how it applied to her. And then as other students and people were taking it, I could understand how it was the building blocks of who I saw them to be as their soul, their personality. And so I pursued this for about 9 months of training, and eventually got this epiphany that God wanted to use these corporate assessments in ministry. And a byproduct of what we do is we create a single sentence purpose statement which reveals the calling that God has in your life. And my purpose statement reads like this: I must strategically lead a gifted team to embrace the power of their God-given design for long-term positive results. And God had taught me that joy is the outcome of being obedient to what he's created you to do. So it was like, all right, you want me to do that? All right, I must strategically lead. All right, I've been a leader all my life, captain on my soccer team, wound up, starting my own business, coached soccer, did all those things. Great, got that part. Long-term positive results, which is the end of that statement. Okay, that's just good works. It's going to create something good when it's done. Getting people to embrace their power of their God-given design. All right, you just showed me and taught me the psychometric assessments. I can see why that was necessary. How am I going to get this to the church? They don't really want to adopt this sort of science in the first place, and they don't want to, and this is like cutting edge. And I was like, all right, I guess I have to write the curriculum. So I sat down after writing poetry and articles and short stories for a year, sat down and wrote the curriculum for their ministry.
Now you're going to write a technical manual in a way.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about it is I thought, all right, well, where do I start? By the way, as soon as I made that mental agreement that I would do it, the name of the ministry was just breathed into my mind. You're going to call it Brushfires Ministry. Cool name. But all right, how does that apply? I don't know. But anyway, Benjamin, here's the really weird part of the story. So I was like, all right, where do I start? Now, I had given messages at church. I'd written articles. I read devotions that, for whatever reason, caught my interest, and I would take a photocopy of it. And I stored all these things in a folder in my office. And I've been doing that for over 20 years, or nearly 20 years. So I went down there and I grabbed that folder and I pulled it out and I started reading what I had accumulated. And it was like, that's identity, chapter 1. That's purpose, chapter 2. That's service. God had been writing the entire book through my life for 20 years, and I didn't even have a clue. I literally wrote something in 2013 that says, I want to be part of a church that will show me what my purpose is and then allow me to be able to do that for other people. I wrote that in 2013 in an article called What is Joy that I had completely forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
So these things are in us. When a person comes into their calling, there's something that is confirmed within them. And they go, yeah, this is who I am. Anyway, I wrote the curriculum, taught the first workshop in 2018, and been doing that ever since. And the software company is still going, but I am still trying to wind it down. I'm thinking next year is the last year for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, there's a couple of key points I think there. And one of those is that starting with Jordan Peterson, he's probably thinking a lot about Job right now. And I'm sure he has in the past, and he's talked about that, when he was going through his first kind of breakdown related to the hospitalization years ago. But that also, then that has happened to me, and I've noticed a pattern as well, is that no one changes anything until it's not working for them anymore. And sometimes there are catastrophic crashes in things that are beyond your control, and maybe even sometimes caused by you. And maybe there's a part of you that kind of self-sabotages in a way, like, because sometimes as they, I think Peterson said in his discussions of Abraham, sometimes God's going to tell you, you need to get out of the comfort of your parents' tent and go have an adventure. You're not fulfilling your full potential or meeting your purpose. And all of that to say, an aphorism came to mind, and I don't know if I invented it or I'm just rephrasing someone else, but the idea that if you chase happiness, it will always run away from you. If you seek meaning and purpose, happiness will chase you. I think is a way, and it doesn't mean you're always going to be happy, or there's any state of static happiness which can be achieved and maintained. But the idea that you're not gonna get that kind of fulfillment out of just chasing happiness itself. It's like happiness is more of a it's something that ebbs and flows that you can't grab onto the same way you can grab onto purpose.
Yeah, happiness is something that is based upon circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
You can sit down and have a really nice meal, and within 5 minutes, you've forgotten about that meal. It's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Joy is something that comes within. There is a section in Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 through 23. And I've been challenging a lot of Christians with this thought. So, and it's surprising how many have not considered this. And so I'll let your audience consider it. It says the fruit of the spirits are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. Let me say that one more time for your listeners. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Now, when I ask Christians this question, I go, are those human wants? Are they human needs? Mm-hmm. It's really hard to get into a consensus among humans, especially Christians, because they all have their separate doctrines, it seems like. But when they really consider it, they go, yeah, I need that. It's not simply something I want. I want love. I want joy. I want peace. And so these are things that God, through his Holy Spirit, gives to his children that are obedient to what it is that he's created. So when you align your purpose, when you align your free will with God's calling in your life, you're now being obedient to what he created you to do. And what's the benefit? Love, joy, peace, patience. Again, business owner, the company has been around for nearly 40 years now, and I've dealt with all kinds of personalities. I've had to be very strong. I've had to fire people, all that stuff. I was doing this ministry, teaching at a church, and one of our volunteers came up to me. She had purchased a series of our assessments to give to her family so she could understand them, better and to be able to relate better to her family. And she asked me to help her interpret these things for her prior to one of the classes. So I sat down and go, sure, Laura, I don't mind doing that. And she goes, I go through the assessment results of these 3 or 4 people. And at the very end of it, she looks at me with complete sincerity. And she goes, Jared, you're so gentle and loving and patient. And Benjamin, I thought she hit me with a bucket of cold water.
And you're like, keep going. What's the rest of the list?
No, not at all. Mm-hmm. I was shocked that another human being looked at me from that perspective. I would have never, in my corporate world life, I would have never described myself as loving, gentle, and patient. I am the opposite of patient. In my own realm. I'm like, I've got contracts, I got responsibilities. This needs to get done now. This is what the contract reads. And so when she said that to me, it was like, who is she talking to? Being obedient to what God's created you to do puts that fruit inside of you. So that love, that patience, that gentleness that was in me was because I was being obedient to what God had created me to do. Mm-hmm. I was aligning my free will with what God had created me to do. So,
gotcha.
And I think a lot of the dreams, in fact, all the dreams I know ultimately led to that.
Well, let's do this. Let's get into the dream thing. So as per my usual process, we're going to do my usual process, but we're not going to do my usual process. But I always start here. First, I shut up and listen. A good advice for almost any circumstance, especially if you want to understand someone else. Then we're going to talk about it and see if we can come to an understanding. And this, because we spoke a moment ago before we started recording, JR let me know that these dreams, as it can happen, came to him with the understanding kind of implicit in a way, or the understanding was delivered with the message. So what I'm going to do is ask him to hold back a little bit on explanation and just kind of tell it like he experienced it. And then we're going to try to stump the wizard. Is like, how close can I get to offering an understanding that aligns with what he believes he already knows? And then maybe I can offer something new or a slightly different perspective that's also useful. But I find these very fun as well. Not just the folks who come in blank slate and ask me to help them figure it out, but folks who say, I already know kind of what I think this means. Let's see what you got. Okay, I'm going to shut up. I'm ready when you are.
Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks exploring the psychological principles which inform our dream experience, and much, much more. To join the wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, where you will also find the wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, documenting the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at benjaminthedreamwizard.com.
All right. So just to give you some background, I was saved. I accepted Christ as a 12-year-old boy in a vacation Bible school in Deltona, Florida. But I was surrounded by non-believers. There were no active Christians in my family or in our network of friends. I got baptized at a church at 16, but I was very backslidden at the time, was not really, I went to church oftentimes without any real desire to be there. Got married at 20 and started in my programming career in that same year, in April of that year. So I'm a quote unquote good guy, nice guy, got morals and so forth, but there is no evidence that you could ever convict me of being a believer or Christian. So get married, have 3 kids. 1987 comes along. My wife and I, relationship's fine. I'm working at my employer, and he was a bit of a psychopath. And so I had decided that I was in the process of leaving him, and I was going to join another ex-employee and start a company. And one night, our youngest, Patrick, was crying, and my wife's habit of the 3 kids was to always go get the baby, and then she would bring him back to bed and nurse the baby in bed and go back to sleep, and the baby would stay there. Well, unusually, our oldest son, Sean, cried that night, and I knew my wife had just gone back to sleep. I was like, all right, I'm going to take care of Sean. And so I go into his room and just lay down with him in his bed and fell asleep. The dream I had was this. Sean and I are floating in darkness, just complete darkness. And we're within, say, arm's reach of one another. And then all of a sudden, a bright light separates us like a wall. And I could see Sean floating away into the darkness, and I couldn't get to him. And I knew that he was going to be harmed. I knew that that something bad was going to happen to him, and I was powerless to be able to get to him because of this bright wall that was separating us. And that's when I woke up, and again, I knew the interpretation. I'll let you go.
Okay. All right. So the and that's how it works. It can be that simple. it doesn't have to be a long, detailed explanation. That was detailed enough. I mean, it went on for, a couple of minutes. That's how these things go. It's a narrative form. First, I saw this or experienced that, and then there's a progression of events, and there's a beginning and an end. And typically, there's I'm absolutely certain there is a place this dream, what we call a dream, started, and there material before that, and there's material after it. But this was the encapsulated experience. So there may have been a precipitating stream of consciousness that came before that, and there may have been more that followed after. But this is what came out, and that's kind of what we consider a dream. Even though my perspective is, the lungs breathe, the heart beats, and the brain thinks, and it does it whether we're asleep or awake. And what we're getting in dreams is more of a raw, unfiltered stream of consciousness, which allows us to get these messages from the subconscious. And I think none of that conflicts with the idea of God sending these messages. I think when they say, God is the way, the truth, and the life, anything you receive that is true is from God, but like definitionally. So if you have an epiphany, a eureka moment about you put the pieces together, you get the finished picture of the puzzle, that is a communication from God, like definitionally. So, the fact that and I say dreams self-select for importance. We don't remember 99.9999% of everything that happens while we're asleep in our brains. We couldn't, otherwise we would not be asleep. But pieces come out with us, and that's the important part. So if it feels important, you remember the details, there's something there that your consciousness was like, bookmark that. You need to come back to it. You can let it go. You can forget it, and then you don't get the benefit of it. But if you're listening, you're paying attention, and you want to have these experiences, then I think they'll come to you. Except me, I don't remember my dreams. I sleep so deeply, and then just nothing comes out. Very rare I even have the experience, oh, I was dreaming. Very rare that even happens, let alone more rare that, oh, I remember what I saw. And if I do, it's like a chunk of, I was standing by the open rear passenger door of a white car, and that's it. And what does it mean? I don't know. What else happened? I don't know. How did I get there? I don't know. That's the kind of dreams I remember. One image. Otherwise, nothing. All right, enough about me. All of this to say that it can be very simple. So you've got characters in the dream, and it could have been anybody, but it was specifically you and your eldest son, who actually that night you had gone to comfort him and fell asleep in his bed with him. And so right there, we're priming the pump in a way for receiving a specific kind of message. There's very naturally, you're carrying your real world concern for your son into the thoughts on what's on your mind, so to speak, the content that might be considered at the very least as you're falling asleep. There's a reason I'm here. This is what I'm experiencing is being here with my son. So and concern for his well-being and whatnot. So you imagine, or the imagery, which is the root of imagination, comes to you with the idea of you're in this void, in a dark space. And what was your experience of it? You said you referred to it as, I can't read my handwriting. Blank something in darkness.
We were floating in floating in
that's
darkness.
The word.
Yeah.
Floating in darkness. So and I like to do the counterfactuals too. You were not in a dark room, so far as you could conceive. That was not the concept you're dealing with. You were not standing on a dark plane that felt vast. You were not falling.
No, it's more like floating in space. I would equate it to.
Yeah, but not the sensation, say, of falling necessarily. There wasn't like a pit in your stomach of like, oh, we're dropping. So there wasn't a descent in that sense. But so there was like a static existence in a void. So you've, in a way, you've cut away any reference to external stuff. You are very narrowly focused. This is me and my son. What is around you could be anything. But in fact, it is nothing, because you're just not showing yourself that. We're in a dark void in a sense. And you're very close to him, within arm's length, which you were in bed. So there's a physical reference there that you might've brought with you. And as you first appeared there, when you realized not realized exactly, but as you were experiencing where you were and what the circumstances were you having any emotional content, or was your son depicted as having any specific reaction to the circumstances?
In the dream, no. I mean, I went to him because he was crying that night, but in the dream, he was pretty silent through the whole process. There was nothing said by him. There was nothing. There wasn't anything that was spoken within the dream. The interpretation when I woke up was very, very clear.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's this is going to, and you didn't have any specific emotional reaction to being in that place at that time. You didn't come into the dream with a specific feeling, so to speak. Okay.
No, it was he was crying, like children do at night, and I went into him so that to prevent my wife from getting up to
Yeah.
to deal with it.
And that's an important, it can also be very helpful in that exactly what you're doing right now. What did I bring to this experience? What were my motivations as well? What was I here to accomplish? And it was definitely to comfort him, but also to relieve your wife of the necessity of that, you stepping up to fill in for, so that she wasn't overburdened. So you're bringing that with you as well. Okay. So you're there to part of the reason I do this, and it seems like excruciating detail sometimes, and I've actually gotten better. I'm dialing it in as I go along. I would hope so, or I should just stop now if I'm not improving. You've got you and your son, in a way, out of context, but in every context. But you don't know what's in the dark, and the darkness itself may not be the point. I think it's the absence of distraction. It's the singular focus on the two of you is what it feels like to me. I don't know if that resonates, if that's part of it. It's hard to do these sometimes because I don't want you to reveal too much, but I want you to tell me if you don't feel a zing, like head to heart of like, or head to gut, that this is going somewhere, then I want you to tell me, no, that's not it. But, without maybe too many spoilers, did you get the feeling that was the darkness an entity, or was it the absence of distraction in a way, is what I'm saying? Not an entity, but its own feature of the dream.
Yeah, the darkness in itself did not feel evil. It was the harm that I felt was coming to my son as that light appeared between the two of us and he was floating away.
Gotcha. Yes.
My inability to be able to help him.
Exactly. Gotcha. Then that's what it felt like to me. And I need to confirm, because as I say, the answers are not in me. If I have a suggestion, if I have an inkling of something, if I'm getting the wrong inspiration, I want to know. Because that's how I tell the difference between, is this coming from, is this my issues, or am I working with the, clients, what they have to share? Yeah, I think it's to wipe away distractions and focus. This is just what we're dealing with here so you're close enough to touch. I think that's an important thing. You weren't separated further initially. You were close, and probably I'd say in your daily lived experience, you felt close to your son. You didn't feel distanced from him generally. Probably in everything from you could communicate easily and show affection easily, and this isn't a dream. Well, maybe it is. I don't want to go there preemptively. We'll see. I'll just stop there. And suddenly a light occurs, and there is a distinction of the darkness and the light. I mean, sometimes the darkness may exist to highlight the light, to say, look at this, look at how bright this light is in the darkness. But the light definitely represents something because it's separating you. And there's a lot of different ways to look at that, but what came to my mind almost immediately was the biblical verse about Jesus saying, I've come to turn family against each other with my words, but not the proper understanding of that is not, I'm here to sow discord, but I'm here to say, if you follow me, you're going to have conflict with people who don't. And so there's maybe I'll just stop there for 2 seconds and let you respond, because that's what occurred to me. And I don't know what shade of meaning attaches to that, or if I'm way off and that's just my own thing. So I don't know if there's something there.
Well, I mean, so again, this all happened in 1987. He was 3 years old. So the ongoing interpretation of that rolls out over time.
Hmm.
And because I have three of these, and I think the other two are more important, why don't we kind of cut to the chase? Because what you just said is actually more true today than it was at the time that I had the interpretation.
Gotcha. Well,
So
that's also kind of where I was going, is because it's not that when your son's 3, and I don't think we're gonna to respect your time. I don't know if we're gonna be able to get to the other two. I spent a lot of time on each one, and this is actually, I'm already abbreviating an abbreviated process. We'd spend a lot more time on this than than we are right now. But that's actually where I was going with it, is the idea of what are you gonna what's going to be on your mind when you're dealing with this issue with yours. You're going to be thinking about your relationship with him, because that's what you're there enacting. You're enacting this caretaker role, and you know it's going to occur over time. And light can also be not only a dividing line, say what do they call liminal space between light and darkness, but it can also be the light of, you will always be older and wiser. You will always be the father, and he will always be the son. So there's always going to be a bit of a division between you. There's always going to be something between you. And what the impression I'm getting, that idea of the dividing thing, is not that you're going to see. This is what I say. The Bible verse that I got, or I don't even remember the verse, just the concept that came to my mind, is that idea of difference, of and not that it's bad in this context is what I'm trying to say. It's like, there's a difference between my wife and I. Even if we became one flesh in our marriage, we are still separate people. We will never have the physical ability to merge into one entity in that sense. There will always be a division between us, and managing that distance to stay close enough to touch, but not enmeshed, but not distant, that kind of thing. So all of this to say, you're coming to bed with your son to comfort him in a moment of distress, and that is naturally going to lead you to think a couple of different things. I'm glad I can be here, but man, this is a hassle. I can't wait till he gets older. Oh, wait a minute. He's going to get older. We're probably going to drift apart as he gets older. That's just natural. It happens. There's going to be something that divides us. And again, it's a natural division. Your son has to grow up and separate himself from you. So what you didn't show is the darkness coming between you. You showed the light. So there's actually probably a good separation that's happening there. But with that separation comes the fear that he's not going to be within reach to save him, that he's actually going to grow up on his own and experience his own struggles, and you're not going to be able to reach him or save him from everything he's going to experience as he's growing up. And I think the fact that it's light that separates you is, you could reference the idea of, so close that there's no daylight between the two in a way. That concept may have been on your mind. I'm going to stop there. Am I going in anything like the correct direction?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I'll just give you the interpretation.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's see how close I got.
Well, again, you got to remember the context. This is back in 1987, so this is a long time ago. When I woke up now, and at this point in time, marriage is fine. Work. I was in the process of beginning to start this new business. I don't believe that I actually announced my leaving the company I was working for yet. I don't think that had happened yet, but I was on the cusp of doing that. Also, my wife was about to be diagnosed with a giant cell tumor in her ankle. That hadn't been discovered yet. And our youngest son, Patrick, the one that cried that night, was going to be diagnosed about 6-8 months later with epilepsy. So all these things, and I didn't know this at the time, wow. Obviously.
And epilepsy features strongly with lights.
So what happened was I woke up from that dream, and I was a very confident, self-assured individual. I woke up with that dream shaking. Okay. For those of you who haven't had a dream from God, this is the way I explain it in the book, Sparks Turn into Brush Fires. By the way, the book's free. Just go to our site, register, and you'll get the book free, because I want people to understand how God wants to talk to you in various ways. But what happened was, I woke up and I was shaking. I knew that God had just spoken to me. There was something that was so, um, I was so exposed by the message.
Hmm.
The way I explain it in the book is a dream from God is like in your mind, it's like something has been etched in glass. It doesn't go away. It's there forever. You can recall the feelings, you can recall the motivations, you recall it all when God's talking to you. And at this point, he's talking to a son of his who, for 15 years, has not um, been serving him or worshiping him or any of that stuff. Was off on his own deal. And when I woke up, I had one clear message. I was literally shaking because I knew God spoke to me, and it was, get your family to church, or your son's going to be hurt in a way that you'll never be able to help him.
Mm.
That was the message. I was so completely, I mean, I was crying.
Mm.
Um, I was shaking from that experience, and uh, and I was really questioning my sanity. The thing about when you come into God's presence, um, and all I had was this message afterwards. There was nothing spoken during the dream itself, but because He created you, your soul, your physical body, even your spirit, because He created you, when you come into His presence, all those things that He created are going to testify against you and go, yeah, yeah, he's unworthy, God. Yeah, yeah, he's does this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All the things that you're confident in, your intelligence, your power, your authority, whatever, completely stripped away. You are as vulnerable, as naked as possible. There is nothing that you can bring into that discussion that's going to allow you to hold your own against God. Period.
Mhm.
So I woke up and I was shaking to the point where I couldn't even talk to my wife because I didn't know what had happened, other than God had just given me this message. So the only thing I could, because I knew if I started talking to her, I would break down and cry and try to explain this madness because I was thinking, you know, all those things. So this is what I came up with. This is before cell phones. So I grabbed my briefcase that morning. On my way out the door, I yelled over my shoulder, "Find us a church. We're going this Sunday." Shut the door, got in my car, and left.
He's bottom lined it for her. Yeah.
Yeah, I could not control myself in being able to have that discussion at that time. I was that shaken, and it lasted. She found us a church that we attended and was filled with a bunch of mature Christians. And the interesting thing is that we're attending these Bible studies and I'm participating in the discussions. And my wife goes, "How do you know this stuff?" Well, all those years of vacation Bible school and so forth were in me. And so, as a byproduct, my wife got saved. All three of our kids have demonstrated uh, statements of faith, whether or not, I'm always looking for the evidence. Specifically with our son Sean, our software company does well. We move into a much more affluent neighborhood, and this is like 5 years later, where you have a lot of very wealthy people that are doctors and lawyers and so forth, and kids that are left unattended. And by fourth and fifth grade, he was exposed to pornography, drugs, and alcohol.
Mm.
By We started to see this pattern where he is not able to, um, has no interest in school, and in seventh grade, we started to see the school system fail him where they were socially promoting him. He would have, D's and F's going into the progress reports and then magically have a C or D, and we're projecting, looking at this. And then with the drugs and alcohol, we're going, his life is going to be destroyed.
Mm.
That being said, my wife then and I, we took him out of public school, and my wife homeschooled him for about a year and a half. we met people that through church that were in the homeschooling environment. So we knew then how to do it. I met my first Christian man that could actually model my life after, and I watched how he dealt with his daughter that was struggling in school, behavior wise, and so forth. And so we had the resources to be able to do this, and to be able to make those choices. Eventually, got him into a Christian high school. His life was going really positively. And I won't go into all the details of his story because that's his personal story.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will say is that he has fallen away. Now, I do know that I do believe in my heart that he is saved, much like his backslidden father was, and that God is eventually going to call him. But my faith and his perspective in this world right now, after spending way too many hours in Reddit and on YouTube videos on his side, he has fallen away and is not following God at this point. And there is a real division. In fact, he and I had a fight. It was like I got a call out of the blue, and I don't want to go into too many details, but he started accusing me of supporting some things and agreeing to some things that are sort of like a narrative that the world is trying to promote about Christians. And I had no idea where I was even getting it from because on social media, I walked away from politics a long time ago. I do have my beliefs, but I don't go around, banging on other people's heads. And I haven't talked to him now since then. And he has basically shut us off for about 2 or 3 months. So this process is still going on, and his life is not going as well as I think he would like it to go. And I don't know where it's going to lead, but he will eventually probably reach back out to us because he knows we love him and want him to prosper and want him to have a good life. And there's been a couple of times where he's asked me to effectively deny my faith, and I refuse to do it. I go, no, I believe this with all my heart. I believe that this is true. So that's where we're at. So it's interesting that projection that you have going further, because I always looked at that as the answer was when he was in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. But I do see that it's an ongoing pattern. My son, I believe, has a very strong calling in children's ministry, specifically junior high, high school age ministry. And he's run far away from that. And he's not happy in many ways at this point because of that. And so I think at some point in time, God's going to get his attention. I just don't know how hard and far he has to fall before, he'll do that. But yeah, that's where that's at.
Gotcha. No, it's fascinating. That gives a lot of additional context that normally when I'm doing the full process, we have more time, we get into more detail, but also a lot of this gets uncovered or inserted as we go, describing the process. Well, let's relate this to what's going on in your life and whatnot. It can also be difficult dealing with a dream from a long time ago, although that can be better because it gives you some now perspective on it as well. I knew this was important back then, and I see it continuing to play out. A couple of things. So as you were saying that, it's funny, the things I get close to, but I can't express it well. And then the things where it's like, well, I obviously fell short, and here's the fullness of it that shows where, deviating from the normal process, it didn't get the best results. Well, for the course, that's exactly right. You use the pitching wedge on the tee. You're not getting very close to the, hole. But that intuition I had in the very beginning of being separated by the light in a way, but also now that you explain it more, I don't want to say as above, so below in a way, but that's kind of what I'm looking at, and not in kind of the Gnostic religious sense, although they weren't wrong about everything. They just had a lot of other weird ideas, but that patterns repeat. So there's the relationship between you as a person and God as the Father. Then there's the relationship that mirrors that of you as the Father and your son, literally, in this world. And there was, and to varying degree always will be in some ways, a separation between you, the person, and God, and then also between the person and their child. And the idea that as they grow up and the further they drift, there's the phrase, raise a child well and they won't deviate from the path. Not necessarily that it's good advice, and it's true insofar as that goes, but also it's their path to tread. And a lot
Yes.
but then that, they also throw that stuff out of as like the prodigal son. Well, get out there and you're probably going to make some mistakes, and hopefully you'll come back. And that's a repeating pattern. Hopefully God is saying to you, hopefully you come back to me. I got to let you go. I got to let you free will. You're going to do your thing, and I love you, and I hope you come back. That's what I want. And then the same with your son, and that there's only so much you can do, and you're always going to struggle with, if you do too much, you handicap them, you enable them, and if you do too little, you aren't trying, and that's not good either. And it's like, what is that balance? And I can imagine, I think that's why some of these dreams come in these forms. Is like it gives you a very simple imagery you can hang on to. That could stay with you for a lifetime, but that shows a pattern that repeats and is profound in the moment and is profound 40 years later, that kind of thing. So I think that's part of what was going on there. So I absolutely think you're right. It's a message from God in that sense. It showed you the truth and a foreshadowing of the future struggles you were also going to have. And you may have known that about his personality at the time. There may have been some inkling there where you're like, oh boy, based on who he has showed me he is, we're in for a rough road. And you may have been able to not process it fully, not explain it verbally, but encapsulate it in this image that stuck with you. I don't know if any of that makes any sense.
Well, I don't know. At 3, he was just a normal boy, and at that
Fair
point, I hadn't started working those long hours that required to get the company going. So I was still his hero and all that stuff. So it was something that was challenging.
Yeah.
I do think it's important that I share at least the second dream with your
Oh,
listeners.
sure. We can talk about it. We won't have time to fully interpret them, but let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, this one is fairly big, and it wound up being very important. Again, if they go to the site, brushfires-digital.com, they'll be able to hear the interpretation, because I don't want to give the interpretation here. But this was in 2001. It was April of 2001. So this is before 9/11. Okay, that's really important timing. I was very active in the church. I was teaching. I was running men's retreats. We were at the pinnacle of the success of our company, our highest revenues. We just got past Y2K, and that was very lucrative for our company. Converting people onto compliant software and so forth. So, as far as the world was concerned, in April 2001. Life was really, really good. So there was no struggles going on, or any of that. So our son would have been 13. So he would have been maybe in the middle of this struggle, our oldest son, because that would have been high school. Maybe he was just coming out of it, or perhaps. Anyway, so here's the dream. Go to sleep. And I hadn't had another dream from God up until that point. So this is whatever. And the dream comes in 4 panels. It's much more complex than the first one. So the very first panel is I'm walking in this hillside, and I'm walking dogs, so I've got dogs around me. And I look up into the sky and I see these 4 black dots align in a straight line in front of me. And I'm staring at them while I see that happen. And then as I'm watching them, they split and they go to the 4 corners of the sky, and they start emanating like a blackness starting from those dots. And it's sort of like if you were to take a pencil and you started to fill in, with the side of the pencil and charcoal it all in.
Mhm.
But it's at the four corners and it's going towards the middle. Eventually, it's going to cover up the entire sky, but I didn't see that part. It was simply I saw the process start. The second one, again, we're still living in Southern California at this time. The second one is my wife and I are living in a home, and we see these, and the home looks like something out of old Ireland, with a grass thatched roof
Mm.
and stones on the being built by stones. And we see people going by, and they're going, we ask them, so what's where are you going? Oh, everybody's going to town. There is a ship that's going to take you to God. And,
Hmm.
and it was like, what? So my wife and I follow them and we go to this area, wherever this is. And she comes back and says, well, she got the information, which is typically how things work. She goes off and gets the details and we make a decision together. And she says, we're on the same ship. We're registered to be on the same ship, but we're not able to be housed together. We are, on different floors of the ship. And my response to her goes, well, that's stupid. I don't have to go to God. And if he wants me, he knows where I am. And we go back to our house. We don't fall into that. The third frame is we're in that same house and I'm outside. And my wife is inside. And this woman that comes to is coming down this path and comes and starts talking to me. And as we're chatting, we're looking at the stones on the wall of the house, and they're in flames. It's not that the house is burning, but there's flames coming out of the house. So it's not consuming, but it is flames. She picks up this hose that's by this trellis, and she turns on the hose, and out of this hose comes this white substance that either conceals or douses the flames so that you don't see it anymore. And the fourth frame of that is I would walk into this bookstore with books piled all over the place, and I have this little, I think is a child next to me, comes up to about my knees. And in this bookstore is this Arab-looking person where they are, a full turban, so maybe like a Sikh or an Arab, but turban, beard, and so forth. And we start this conversation where he goes, wow, all these crazy things are going on in the world right now. And he asks me, he goes, do you think it's the end times? And I start describing him, what the end times are going to look like, and some of the manifestations like these flesh-eating hornets or whatever they are of some sort, and a couple other things. But in the midst of trying to tell him, all of a sudden, my words are coming out, like Charlie Brown with the teacher, wah, 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 wah. And as I am talking to him, I'm going, wait a minute, why are my words coming out muffled like that? And I'm thinking, okay, that's really, weird. I want to tell him about this, what it's going to look like, but it's not happening. And all of a sudden I hear a stack of books fall, and I look over and he's on the ground and he's looking at me completely terrified,
Hmm.
completely terrified. He's looking at me and he's just in complete fear as he's looking at me. And that my reaction at that point is, well, what the heck is wrong with you? Why, we were just talking. I know that was weird with the wah, 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 but why are you looking like that? And at that point, as I'm looking down to him, I noticed that the child that was with me is in a position like praying.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, all right, well, what's wrong with the boy? What's wrong with the child? Is the child scared? And as I'm looking down, I see that my body is glowing in this bright light. And that's when I woke up.
So it was important for you to share that in connection with the first dream without getting too much into the specifics of the interpretation that you want to keep as a surprise for
Right.
folks that go to your website.
Yeah, right. They were welcome to do that. And again, the book is free. It doesn't cost you anything to register on our site. But it's important because I again had immediate interpretation. I know what the dream meant. I was at a place in my life which was like, this is some of the financially and success wise one of the best places we had been, and I know what the interpretation was, and I was left with this feeling of, oh God, why did you give me this dream? What am I supposed to do with this? I'm a business owner of a software company. What am I supposed to do with this? Prior to this book, and so it was nearly 25 years ago at this point, I had shared that dream with about 30 people, period, in 25 years. I spent the next 5 years trying to figure out why God gave me the dream. I knew what it meant. I had no idea why. It wasn't until he called me into the ministry of brush fires that I then was able to put one and one together. That I could then see, all right, I need to have this understanding of what's coming so that I understood the urgency of the ministry that God is calling me to. It took me a while to put those pieces together, and now it makes sense. And the book Sparks Turn into Brush Fires is my 6th book. It's not on Amazon yet. It's going through final editing. But once I got it at a ready state, I wanted it to be available for anybody to be able to get to. And the edited version, once I get it back from my editor, will be also available for free on our website, or you can buy it on Amazon. But I wanted people to understand why it was important. And when God prompted me to write this book, which is a faith-based chronology or autobiography of my life, I was like, yeah, I don't really want to share that. I don't want people to think I'm a complete loony. I don't want them to look at me. And there was a couple other things that we were going to share in the book that are very, very personal. And I don't want to share that. And it was kind of funny because God, we had this discussion, and it was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And then the thought pops in my head, yeah, wasn't that the answer when I told you to study the psychometric assessments back in 2016? Yeah. And then the follow-up question, how'd that work out for you? It changed my life. All right, God, I'll write the book. So I don't know, Benjamin, what he intends with this book. I think the timing that it happened so long ago, I met with my pastor that morning. And he actually wrote, in the final release, he wrote a testimony about that day, and so forth as an endorsement to the book. So there is evidence, third-party evidence, of course, with my wife, and he encouraged me at that time to journal the dream so that I had it clear written down because it's so complex.
Yeah.
And so I journaled for about 9 months the dream, and then what went on for about 9 months afterwards. I stopped the journal right after 9/11. It was like, oh, if this is what God just showed me, and this is what just happened in our country, oh, it's going to get ugly. So that's all in there. And what I share in the book is cut and paste directly from that journal. It's exactly what I felt. It's exactly what I interpreted. It's exactly what he shared. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's your listeners that are the reason why he had me write this book. I don't know. All I know is that he made it very clear what he wanted me to share in the book, and how he wants to talk to all of his kids. And we're all his children, you know?
Yeah, definitely. That's That is fascinating. I think there's always something to be learned if you pay attention. And you mentioned something which I think is very important. If you want to remember your dreams, write them down. There's no substitute for getting it on paper. And the process of trying to compose your thoughts in that way and write them down often is like speaking them to another person. You're speaking them to the page. There's a lot of benefits to writing things out, and you'll find that the details expand as well. Because like you'll have an idea of a sequence of 3 events, and you're like, well, wait a minute. Between each description of the sequence, there's actually like 10 separate things that happened in the meantime, or involving that first element, second element, third element, and you get that out, and it helps to flesh it out as well. So even if a dream sticks with you and you think the recall is vivid, and even if you remember it 10 years later, it's always best to write these things down if you hope to remember it as accurately as possible. Because then you can also compare your memory later with, well, that's not what I wrote down. Wait a minute, what happened there? And then Freud warned about that too, this idea of secondary elaboration. We try to explain things in fuller detail, and it's not actually what happened because we're telling the story long after the fact, and we didn't write it down. And you don't want to add too many things or change things, because then you start thinking your interpretation was part of the dream when it's an explanation.
It's like a fulfilling prophecy. You are reinterpreting it as you go. So having that hard copy from back in 2001 was really important. An interesting thing. So when I was putting it into the book and rereading it and so forth, it still brought me to tears. 20 some years later, it brought me to tears. I could feel all those emotions of what happened. And it was, these things don't wane with time. When you get a dream from God, it's like he's talking to you, and the first time I was backslidden. Now he's talking to me at the height of my success, and I'm, actively involved in the church, and I get this other dream. And the other 2 dreams are also documented in the book that came much later. But if you do have something like it, write it down, because it matters, especially when you feel like it's an important message from your father.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even if you're not religious, particularly spiritual, it can just be whatever core of you understands the truth trying to speak out as well, which I think that's synonymous with God as well. So if it feels important, it probably is, and you should probably pay attention to it and give it some thought, which is one of the broader messages of the show I'm doing here is like, why do I do these things? Well, I don't think it's, what do the New Yorkers say? It's not for nothing. There's a reason behind this. I think it has value and purpose behind it. So go ahead. Oh, you froze. Oh, that's lovely. Right as we're about to wrap it up, I'm sure it'll fix itself. Yeah. Oh, there, you're back.
Wait a minute. It looks like our internet just says it's unstable. Are we good still?
I can hear you now. You froze for 10 seconds. Please continue.
So I would hope that if there are other people that are listening that have had dreams of this sort of nature, that they would not feel like they are alone. I mean, it shook my core, because again, you have this very rational, logic-based leader personality that is having this dream, and it shook me. It's like, none of this made logical sense. None of this was something that I was searching for or looking for. It was like, here, now deal with it. And I think it happens a lot more than we think it does, but we don't have a resource to be able to go to talk about it. When I met with my pastor that morning in 2001, it was, I was still shaking when I spoke with him. He told me, because I've never had a dream from God, so I don't know what it is, but I can tell that this was real for you. And so he addressed it from that perspective. I had the ability to be able to talk to somebody that morning. I think a lot of people, especially in the day that we live in right now, are going to have these sort of dreams. And they need people like you, or maybe, if they want to reach out to us, if they think it's of a faith-based, whatever. Because if they just keep it to themselves and don't act on it, I think they're going to miss the whole point of having that dream. And so I applaud what you're doing. I hope your listeners, take advantage of your interpretation services so that they can actually have somebody to talk to, because I'm glad I did.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. That is actually the highest compliment I think anyone can give me, is this was not a waste of time. Absolutely. But speaking of time, I know you're short on it. I don't want to run you up against your own clock. So we'll wrap it up here, I think. Once again, this has been our friend John J.R. Rennie out of northern Idaho. He is the founder of the Brush Fires Ministry. You can find him at brushfires-digital.com. It's also kind of partly on the screen right down there. But also, there's currently a free book on there. It's, oh my goodness, Sparks Turn into Brush Fires, which is I love analogies. So the better the mental imagery, the more it sticks with you, which I think is why dreams are so powerful. It's that encapsulating ideas in these vivid images. Okay. And for my part, would you kindly like, share, and subscribe? Tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. I do video game streams Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific, most days of the week. This episode brought to you in part by ABC Book 18, Onirochronologia, Volume 4, Prima Reliquorum. Why am I stumbling over that? I don't know. The first time I get through it just fine. The second time I stumble over the words. You can find all this and more at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com, including audio MP3s of this very podcast. And if you'd head on over to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, building a community there, free to join, attached to my Rumble account. One of the best ways to reach out to me if you have a dream to share. And the last thing to say is, JR, thank you for being here. It's been a fun and fascinating conversation.
Yeah, Benjamin, keep in touch. I think there's more to this than just some kind of chance connection on a podcast. So if you have, anything that you would like to share with me in the future, feel free to give me a call and send out a word. And again, I encourage people to go to our site, find out about our ministry, read the book, and God does talk to you. He's talking to people all the time, and that dream may be his way of reaching out to you.
Especially if you have just stumbled across this podcast, you've never heard it before, and now you're hearing this from this guy. Maybe there's a message in there for you. Who knows how these synchronicities occur, but you should probably pay attention to it. The last thing to say then is, of course, thank you for watching, and we hope to see you next time.